The Countryside Podcasts with Chris Skinner.
We're getting on with May. It's incredible how the year is speeding by, but it's been coolish this year compared with last year when there was a heat wave, and we've had, crucially, Chris, we've had some quite decent amounts of soaking so far today.
Yes, we have 10 millimetres so far this morning. The wind has changed around almost due north. Some of the showers are coming in slightly from the east. And it's it's manna from heaven for farmers at the moment. 10 mils, just short of half an inch of rain. So that's about 50 tonnes an acre of water. An inch on an acre is 106 and a quarter tonnes. Or if you're going to do it in gallon buckets, you're going to be quite busy because it's 22,610 1-gallon buckets for an inch on an acre. So just to illustrate the power of nature, and we're on a seam of clay this morning. We're on a field which is behind us, which we call the oat field, a little distance behind, and it comes through onto these, and you can see the crop, which is overwinter wild bird seed mix, looks very different just here because a lot of the seed hasn't yet germinated because it's quite cloddy, and some of the moisture when we put the seed in was lost, and so the seed still is there, but so it should germinate. And the rest of the field down there, lower down, the soil is more friable, and there's a really good germination there. But these crops don't need the moisture just yet, so they were coping with the incessant dry weather really, really well.
But
you can see
eventually this will be a marvellous crop for the wildlife.
Absolutely, yes, it will. And there's still plants germinating and just coming through. And you can see where the seed was incorporated. It's still in little bits of lines, although we haven't got a drill. We broadcast the seed on because in the mix that we use, there are some tiny, tiny seeds, mustard, fodder radish, linseed, and phacelia as well, and some of that's germinated, but a lot is just sitting there waiting, and I don't mind that. I can see a sunflower just coming through over there. I won't walk you on the field because it's clay, and any farmers know if you go on clay in wet weather or damp weather, you come back with it all round your feet, and you can hardly sort of stroll off the field.
The seed mixture, though, is your own invention.
Yes,
and your own concoction.
Yes, it's been used by DEFRA as well, Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, and they've copied some of the mixture for the recommendation for farmers to use. Some of the farmers leave some of the particular seeds out, things like fodder radish, which it can form a very tall, bushy plant and stands really well, but some of the overwinter wild bird seed mix unfortunately gets shot through, and the pheasants don't like flying out of fodder radish, so sometimes some of the mixture that is recommended gets missed out, although it does provide little seeds through the winter because the seed's produced in a pod and it's almost waterproof, and birds like linnets and yellowhammers can pick the pods open in January and February. The other thing is it's a good standing plant. This is fodder radish. So if you do have snow, which is a rarity here in the eastern counties, the food is always available above the snow level. So
got a bird flying across there. Is that a skylark?
Yes, I think so. We've got skylarks here, and the yellowhammers all around these hedges. This is quite a small field in front of us. It's about 7 acres.
Bit of a throwback, this field, isn't it? And absolutely ringed with a hedge.
With hedges all the way round, and so's the one next door and the one behind us. And it's a real sort of picture of the tapestry of how the countryside used to look before hedge removal, which was the sort of thing to do in the 1970s, and I'm holding my hand up here as a guilty partner to that, and we got paid to do it. You got sort of land reclamation, and one of my heroes was somebody who'd worked for War Ag at the end of the war years to grub out hedges with a bulldozer, and he'd arrive at the farm and put the angle blade of the front of the bulldozer set at 45 degrees, and he'd drive down one side of the hedge and it would just flip over rather like a snowplough going through snow, and then turn round at the bottom of the hedge, put the blade straight and push the whole lot back up into a bonfire, and that would be the funeral pyre of hedge. And
we probably may have been there 500 years.
Yeah, so we didn't think anything of it, and it's particularly when you got paid, and then you could use the bigger machinery which was coming along, and we made so many mistakes, including the chemical mixes that we used out on the farm, things like DDT, some of the seed dressing that we used, dieldrin for instance, and then later on mercuric oxide, which sent all the grain bright red, and you'd handle that with your hands, and because we weren't aware of all the dangers of it. So I've been through hell and high water, but yeah, and summer, looking back, I do feel guilty about what I've done, and that's why some of the hedges around us are fairly newly planted about 20 years ago, but it takes a lifetime to get them. That's a newly planted hedge coming away from down here, and it's bang on the spot where Gordon Long bulldozed a lovely old hedge out many years ago. Anyway, we're standing, without knowing it, almost by a little quarry here, and I'm going to get you to walk through the hedge here, and then we're on the edge of a quarry, and because we're on solid clay here, it was discovered that the clay in this particular spot, where it was all hand dug, was ideal for making clay blocks. And there was lots of small farms around where we're standing, about 5. None of them are here anymore. They've all been either absorbed into larger farms, some of them into high ash, including the 2 fields we're looking at. And just in the distance there, I can see some pantiles on a roof, and that's a clay block barn, one of the few that's still remaining, and it's peppered, absolutely peppered, with solitary bees nesting in where the tar on the outside of the clay blocks has sort of dropped away, and it's an ideal nesting habitat for those bees. But we've got something else nesting here, and it's okay to talk, we're not going to be disturbing anything, but first of all, I've got to get you to go through this bit of hedge. So,
okay, I've been paid the danger money for this week.
Yes, you have. All you got to do is we'll hold that. I'm being kind to you, and just be careful because you've got blackthorn to start with.
Yeah, just come through here. Oh, and here we are, inside the hedge, and there's a mound here.
Perfect, and we're quite high up.
In amongst all these old trees and
yes. And there's an ancient sort of bonfire here. I didn't burn it, it was just trimmings and some of the branches that fell off the lovely avenue trees. So we're now looking due westwards towards the Roman town, about 3/4 of a mile away. And you can see there's quite a dip here. It's probably 15, 18 feet deep, and a big bank around the back of it. And then all this sort of old bonfire debris here, which is gradually rotting down. It's all from trees that just fell over. You can see one here completely rotten, and rats gone down the edge of the quarry, and it's just pure clay that we're standing on. It's really unusual, but not uncommon in Norfolk, particularly once you go into South Norfolk. You have a lot of flat, level land, and that's where there was a lot of airfields in the Second World War. Tibenham, Tivetsall, Winfarthing, and sort of quite a lot in the Pullums. There were aircraft landing place there. Perfectly flat, level land, so you didn't have to do the work.
between 41 and 45, Norfolk was basically an aircraft carrier.
Absolutely,
sticking
yes.
out into the North Sea.
And we had the early radar right on the edge of High Ash Farm, some wooden pylons there, so we could detect the German bombers coming in, and that was actually a target for the bombers in the second part of World War II. But Rat's really interested in this portion of the quarry, and he's sort of edging his way along. Rat's my terrible terrier. Sorry I haven't introduced him before on this Countryside podcast. And he's using his nose. Now, there's a little, on top of the bank here, there's a little bare spot of ground. And about 10 days ago, I was driving round in the evening and I saw what initially I thought was a grey squirrel running up beside the hedge towards where we are. And I carried on driving down the hill a little bit and then discovered what I was looking at was not a grey squirrel, it was a stoat, Mustela erminea.
Not a regular sight.
No, you can't plan to see stoats. They're amazingly evasive and very, very fast as well, and always on the move. So I have a lot of respect for them, and I've learned over the years quite a lot about them. So there's a lot of history attached to them, and you know, most people, the only stoat you'd ever see is a squashed one on the road, or one, if you're lucky enough and you regularly walk out in the countryside, they'll go across a track in front of you like lightning. The little legs are almost a blur. They live life in the fast lane is the only way to describe it. But funny enough, last week when King Charles opened the Houses of Parliament, most people say, well, hardly ever seen a dead stoat, but King Charles was wearing ermine, which is a white robe, you know, and you can actually see the black dots. Now, why stoats are basically brown and creamy white underneath? What is ermine? Well, ermine is the winter coat of some stoats, particularly in the northern half of the UK. They well, you can call them turncoats if you like, because the colour of the coat changes from brown on the top, white underneath, and they go through a winter molt, and the coat that comes through is much thicker and it's pure white. It only works and gives a stoat an advantage if you've got snow on the ground, which you have in the more the northern part of the UK. And otherwise you're very conspicuous on brown ground without the snow on the ground and wearing a white coat. But the only bit of the stoat that doesn't turn white in ermine is the tip of the tail. It always stays black, and a close relative of the stoat is a weasel, quite a lot smaller. That has a much shorter tail and it doesn't have the black tip on the tail. Now, those previous weeks we've looked at other members of the mustelid family. That's the badger, which we have here at the farm, otters as well, same family. And you come down a little bit, pine martins, stoats, weasels, and there's one or two others, but they're all members of the same family which have kind of adapted themselves to different habitats. And stoats and weasels have sorted it out beautifully, because a male stoat is about 30 centimetres long, it's about a foot in old money, and quite a lot larger than the female. The female's about 10 inches from tip of nose to tip of tail. Remember, they've both got black tips to their tails. Then we go to the weasel, and you can tell the difference between a stoat and a weasel, because that demarcation line between the brown fur on the back of a stoat and the white, creamy white underneath is a dead straight line. Whereas a weasel, it's wavy, almost like a rainbow, all the way along the side of the belly. And so the male weasel is about 8 to 9 inches in old money, from tip of nose to tip of tail, and the female is the smallest of all. And some people could sort of say that a female weasel can go through a large wedding ring. They're that small and very, very sinuous and dexterous, and they all hunt slightly different prey. So the stoat, which I managed to have the camera here for over a week, I did 600 1-minute videos. And when you wonder what I do at lunchtime, I don't eat my lunch. I trawl through the videos.
That's 4 hours odd, isn't it?
Yes,
So, yeah.
yes. So they do hunt at night, but I chose to wait to see if I could get a daytime video. And would you believe it? Thumbs up. I've got 2 cracking videos of the female stoat coming back to this lair in front of us. She's got kittens in there, or young stoats, if you like.
So whereabouts here?
They're in the bottom of this bonfire.
Just in the wood pile.
Yes,
here.
in the wood pile here. And they're quite safe there. And she's bringing food back to them. And that's what I saw originally, that I thought was a grey squirrel bounding up the side of the hedge. But it was taking rests and just sitting bolt upright every sort of 10, 15 seconds, just checking, and then putting its head down, and then seemed to be carrying something up towards where I'm standing. And then what it was, she'd killed a young rabbit, and she was dragging that all the way back. So fresh meat has got lots of protein in, it's got moisture in, and she's also nursing those young. And she will be visited perhaps in the next week or so, just after she's given birth. She's got young in the nest. The young are about the size of a lid of a small ballpoint pen, so they're tiny. They have no hair on them. Their eyes are closed. You get sort of half and half, male and female, and a male stoat will come along, and once she comes back into season, they will mate at this time of the year, the male stoat and the female stoat. But then you have what's called zygotic egg production, where the eggs in the female stoat are fertilised, but like the badger, the female stoat doesn't give birth until March, April next year, 2027. So it's called delayed implantation. Now, something shocking happens now. The male stoat, remember, he's pretty thunderously big compared to these tiny little ones. He will mate, I hardly dare to say this, with his children, which are freshly born. And they conceive, they become pregnant, so it is very rare to find a young female stoat that isn't pregnant. It's really gory, but that's what happens in nature. It's a really most unusual phenomena, and so that's why I became interested in them as creatures, and I was quite almost shocked, and hopefully my fingers were crossed that King Charles, in his ceremonial robes with all the little black tails sticking out of the robes, were now synthetic fur, but a lot of the lords still, you wear ermine if you're a lord, and you have 4 rows of tails sticking out if you particular nobility, like a duke and above, so you have to be quite sort of posh to wear those, or quite famous to wear ermine.
Presumably they last quite a few years, and maybe
yes,
you could put them in the washing machine.
Well, I don't know that you'd put them. Ermine has always been incredibly expensive. It's first mentioned, I think, in 1138. I think it was King Edward III, and it was then started to be used as a really special robe to denote the hierarchy that you achieved in society. So it's still used. Anyway, just behind me there's a nice little open spot, and this is where I put the camera, and I managed to get the female stoat running up almost to the camera, sort of really fast. They live life in a fast lane. It's in HD, so you can actually, if you're able to put it on a computer screen, it'll be on High Ash Farm Facebook for this Sunday's Countryside podcast, and you just get an idea of how beautiful they are, lithe, quick, and ruthless killers. They will kill birds, which is why gamekeepers don't like them. So it's got a reputation on it. It's a tiny animal, I mean under a foot long and not much thicker than a large cigar in the case of a weasel. But, you know, I'm just trying to think of something. It's sort of a large tube of Smarties is about the size. Sorry, other sweets are available.
Actually, I don't know if they are still available.
No,
both.
probably not.
But
No,
that's our misspent youth, Smarties.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
But that gives you an idea of the scale.
Yes, it does. Yeah, they're tiny and fast, deadly. Now, the interesting thing about stoats is the male stoat is one of our food carnivores that regularly kill prey much larger than itself. So they can take down a fully grown rabbit, and in the northern half of the UK they will even catch mountain hares, which are a little bit smaller than the ones we have here in Norfolk, but they have been known to kill those. They're really widespread, but because they're so secretive you don't see them very often. They have been seen at the observatory at the top of Ben Nevis, right up high, so you get them in mountainous areas, anywhere where there was rabbits, and it was feared by early conservationists when the myxomatosis struck in the 1950s, the early 1950s, that would be the end of the stoats. But they held on, and now rabbits have recovered and the stoats have followed. But they're still, and I emphasise that, they're still heavily persecuted. You know, most game farms where shoots are operated, they'll have stoat traps all over the hedgerows, and yet it's one of our most beautiful, fantastic animals. So nobody can sort of speak on behalf of stoats and some of our red list species, but I'm going to stand up for them and say, you know, we should really protect them, and certainly not wear them in any ceremonial garb. You know, the days of wearing fur are long gone, and it's hugely unfashionable and unpopular. And so I'd like to see a whole new sort of set of rules for some of our most beautiful wildlife, that it shouldn't be persecuted. Like, yes, they will take eggs as well, but many of us eat eggs for a breakfast, and come on, you've got to see life from their side if you possibly can. That's why I become fascinated with them. And they say a picture says 1,000 words, and you know, when you see the video of the stoat, if you're able to see it, they're cheerfully joyful and beautiful animals. So there we are. I said my piece. I'm going to go stoatly quiet now.
Well, I've seen the preview of the video, and I would highly advise anyone who has any interest in the countryside to look at that video. Yes. Because it is stunning what you've achieved there, and those 600 hours.
600 1-minute videos, yes.
But over the years, yes, so many hours to capture a video like that, yes, and then press freeze frame when he's there, yes, and you can admire him in all his glory.
Absolutely beautiful. So they're now in their summer coat at the moment, and it's much thinner than that winter coat. But I think we now need to put the video camera back here, because unless he's managed to get back to the car, I think Rat's missing somewhere. He won't be under that bonfire, but you know, we need to retrieve him. And,
I think he wants to get back in the car.
Oh, right, he's over there. He's sitting by the truck, ready to go
there he is,
to the next location.
It's a bit chilly for him today.
It is, yes. He's a bit of a lightweight. That's two of us here.
Yeah. Right, back the other side of the hedge, and,
yes,
and this is the Stoat's world.
Yes,
here,
Stoat's world. Absolutely amazing.
One of the most delightful and evocative sounds of the English countryside, Chris, the song thrush.
Yes, it's one of the success stories here at the farm. We've got quite a number of them nesting here, and it's one of the UK's most competent songsters singing away for us.
Just one of the sounds that you can hear regularly on this podcast.
And we've got a little favour to ask. If you can possibly help by sending us a donation to help support the running costs of the podcast by visiting highashfarm.com/podcast.
And thank you for all your donations. We're visiting one of Chris's bird hides. It's in a thicket of thorns. And I'll just make my way round the door. I suppose all these thorns makes it perfect cover. And in we come.
First of all through a hedge and then through a bramble thicket.
Yes, it's our SAS training course this week. Oh, and straight away, looking through these one-way windows, there's a beautiful little robin pecking away at the seeds that Chris has left as he puts the blackout curtain to one side.
Yes, it's what you would do in the Second World War. All your windows had to be enclosed so you didn't let any light out, and to alert the bombers that were coming over. Yes, so we got a robin there. Just as we walked in, there were quite a number of rooks and jackdaws feeding here. So I put the camera here last night. My camera's been busy this week, firstly with the stoats, and then just as the sun was setting, it goes low across the large bale in front of us. There's an 8-foot Heston bale there, raised up off the ground, and this low sun illuminates the rooks. So we came in about 2 to 3 weeks ago because the rooks were nesting and they were gathering food, but I made a slight mistake, which I often do with our podcast, because we just broadcast all the fields with the seed, which is going to be used for overwinter wild bird seed mix, and the seed was easily available for the rooks, and so Rat's just jumped up on your trousers and he's just been across clay, so he's leaving each week. He leaves poor Matthew with quite a washing bill with muddy paw prints on the trousers. So the rooks were feeding elsewhere, but now they've come back to eating, well, vegetable food because the seeds are germinated, and they're also visiting this bird hide. I had meant to top the hide up, the bale up with some fresh food, so that when we sat in and waited for them to return, hopefully, fingers crossed, they will do. And the first yellowhammers have started to come a bit later than normal this year. So I had a video camera going last afternoon about 5, 6, and 7 o'clock with a low sun, and I got my first male yellowhammer here, and so they're just flocking up as well. So it's interesting, if we have the rooks come back, they're now eating the seed on the bale, and they're taking it back to the females, which are doing all the incubating on the nest. Most of the young rooks have hatched now. Incubation of an eggs are about 17, 18 days, possibly a bit longer this year because it's cooler. And then the young rooks, from the day they hatch to the day they actually leave the nesting site, is about 40 days, 35, 40 days. So it's quite a long process. The female can then come off the nest once they're hatched, because she does all the incubation. So the male rooks, which visit the hide here, are completely responsible for looking after her. So it's quite a interesting relationship.
No sign of the rooks returning at the moment. When we came round, there were some sentinel rooks that saw us fairly quickly.
Yes, they did. Yes, they was up on the trees around us and they've disappeared. But this is the thing with wildlife watching. It's always chancy, and it also requires patience, and many people run short of patience while they're bird watching, and you can have some memorable sights, so it's always worth a try. And there were perhaps 50 on the bale in front of us just last evening, just as the sun was setting.
You had some ducks down here just now.
Yes, there was, and there's a rook or a jackdaw flying straight towards us, though that's a jackdaw some distance away. But you have this lovely panoramic view of High Ash Farm. It's a really special spot. I'm sorry about the aroma in the hide. We've got some long-tailed field mice, so it smells a little bit mousy in here at the moment. Rat doesn't mind that, so I've managed to grab him on my lap, complete with his muddy paws. and we're just going to sit and wait. But while we're doing that, we can perhaps have a look at one or two of the questions. It's not too dark in here, but it is one-way glass in front of us. So looking from the outside into the hide, it's almost pure black, and so you can't see in here at all.
Chris Biggin has sent us an email. Where I live, we have a wood behind our house and another at the bottom of the garden. At this time of the year, I'm often awoken in the early hours to the song of the blackcap. There seems to be a rival pair, one in each wood, with our garden being the divided line. They have the most lovely song, and up here in Yorkshire, which is too far north for nightingales, they are known as the northern nightingale. It's for their delightful song, starting just as dawn is breaking.
Absolutely wonderful, wonderful sound. We have blackcap here at Hyash Farm on the eastern counties here, and the interesting thing is nightingales, you're quite right in the observation on the email there, that basically a line from the Wash across to the Severn Estuary, a bit of a diagonal across the UK, and nightingales don't go further north than that line. And so after that, the interesting word is the northern nightingale for the song, because it is really beautiful. They're one of our warbler species, and they sing to mark out their territory, and it's a really rich, fluty song, really, really beautiful. And they will set up their territories by singing in it, rather like a nightingale does. So anyway, thank you very much for that. And just bear in mind that blackcaps are beginning to spend the winter. There's quite a lot of evidence now that people that feed birds over the winter months actually are being distracted because a feral pigeon has just landed on the bale in front of the hide here, and it looks to start with rather like a stock dove, but it's not. It's a feral pigeon, probably come from Norwich and getting some quick top-up of a ready meal here. And the first jackdaws and rooks are beginning to return, so fingers crossed. So going back to the blackcap, many of them are spending winter
Jackdaw
here in the UK, so they're overwintering here. Yes, we've just had a jackdaw arrive, and it's right next to the window now. There's a table right in front of the glass, and that's one of the smallest local members of the three lowland crow species that you're likely to see in the eastern counties. And so about 12 inches from tip of beak to tip of tail. And a grey squirrel's just arrived. Very common here at the farm, and good fodder as well for the local goshawks. They're sort of clearing them up into woodland.
David and Chris Murray write to us, we've had a hare in the large sugar beet field next to the house. I've been watching it on a daily basis. The sugar beet is only just showing. The farm has sprayed the field with some white fertiliser, I think, and also insecticide. I haven't seen the hare since. Are they intelligent enough to leave when they hear machinery in the field, and do they take their babies as well?
No, they won't move the babies, but a sugar beet field at this time of the year is quite hostile, really. It's bare ground, and the hares will have secreted, quite clever, very vigilant mums, they will have secreted the baby hares, or leverets as they're known, around the edge of the fields, not out in the open. And the fertiliser, some can land in the centre of the little tiny sugar beet plants, and it's incredibly bitter. If the hare eats that, it will certainly move on to a different crop. Farmers can spray insecticides on sugar beet baby plants at this time of the year, but it's more often just when the leaves meet in the rows in about a month to 6 weeks' time. So it's much more likely, you say spray fertiliser, it's usually spread as a granule, but you can have liquid fertiliser as well and spray that on.
And David and Chris go on to say, we're wondering if the bee orchids on the farm are getting near to being in flower yet. And are they in the same place as last year? According to the tea towel, they've got a High Ash Farm tea towel with the map on it. We think we were near Greensides Field.
Yes, you're quite right. And there's thousands there. And as soon as they're open enough, as soon as they start to come into flower, I'll mow round very carefully. I'll put the row of canes out where I can take the mower through, and we'll have a little walk right out into the field. So you'll be very welcome.
Mr. F has sent some video for you to have a look at. He says, I've been delighted to witness a great tit making its nest and producing 11 eggs, which in turn we got 9 chicks from. Unfortunately, 2 did die, but 7 are left and doing well. I've been leaving out live mealworms, and as you know, I've a bird and a bee-friendly hedge which has supplied the caterpillars. Today, though, I witnessed a predator trying to get its beak in the nest. They're all fine and no harm came to them or has come to them, but what was it? I thought it was the local magpie or jackdaw, but the beak looks curved. Have you any ideas?
Yes, I had a careful study of the video, and first sort of culprit that would have the guilty finger pointed at it would have been a woodpecker. But woodpeckers have a slightly square end on their beaks, all 3 species, for chiselling out wood. So the next one was the jackdaw, and the beak on a jackdaw is quite short, as we just saw outside the windows. A rook has a really long beak and would be a candidate, and we just had some rooks there while you were reading the questions. 3-inch long beak, but pretty well straight. Carrion crow was another culprit, but not that. And I'm afraid the guilty finger, without doubt, pointed at a magpie. The top of the beak's quite straight, but when the beak is slightly opened, which it was on this occasion, the bottom portion of the beak was slightly curved, and that's the culprit. There we are, perfect. So very good, clear video, so get a nice solid identification. Now, that didn't matter because the great tit chicks are quite tiny and not capable of jumping up, but had in about another week's time those chicks seen the hole get blacked out by mum or dad bringing a caterpillar, they would have jumped up, and then the jackdaw would have the magpie would have grabbed them. So there we are. Thank you for that.
Well, magpies seem to be doing rather well. They always seem to be around, certainly
Yes.
bouncing around on my roof. I can hear them, but
Yes.
not quite so common are jays,
No,
Chris.
that's right.
And the other day I saw 3 all flying at the same time.
Yes, doing really well and increasingly becoming urbanised as well. That happened with the magpies about 30 years ago. We started to become less tidy with our food waste and particularly takeaway meals, and magpies started to move more and more into urban areas, and the same's now happening with jays, although they have a different diet, and anywhere where there's some permanent woodland. Jays are very much a woodland bird and absolutely stunning, and we have to thank jays for many of the oak trees that you see out in the countryside. They collect them, cache the acorns in late autumn, and then being what happens, they either get shot or forget where they've secreted all the acorns, and you can have new oaks coming courtesy of the jay. Right, Will. Just about there with the questions, aren't we?
I think we've got one more. Gillian says that your recent mention of Minsmere, the RSPB Reserve in Suffolk, you mentioned Minsmere, and that provoked a memory. She remembers in the 70s her mum dragging her and her sister along with a group from the Ruislip Natural History Society, a fine body of men and women, I know. They went all the way to Minsmere on a field trip. And after a minute or so, we came across a man looking through a scope, and he said, "Look, there's a woodchat shrike on that bush." So I peered through the scope out of politeness and thanked him and mooched off down the path, none the wiser. And the others were still standing around peering through bins and muttering tedious birdie things. So I said in a flat, bored, "Are we going yet?" kind of way, "Mum, there's a gentleman up there who says he's seen a wood shrike," except she didn't say shrike. She said something that rhymes with shrike and brought the house down. I've not seen one since, she says. Well, they're very rare, aren't they?
Yes, extremely rare. Yes, we're really lucky to see that. And Minsmere or anywhere similar along the Suffolk coast is a good place to see them. Striking birds, but really scarce now. So our other members of the shrike family, some of them have stopped nesting in the UK now. Shrikes are also known as butcher birds because they often impaled their prey, something like a sand lizard, on a blackthorn, and you'd sort of see their larder strewn along hedgerows when you had shrikes in the area. Fearsome birds.
You can send Chris a question, and we go through most weeks the emails that arrive and letters at chris@highashfarm.com, the email address, and the website highashfarm.com/podcast. And if you want to find out about how to donate to keep the podcast going, that's where you go. There's also High Ash Farm Facebook with videos of all sorts of creatures, including this week's feature, the stoat.
And with a little bit of luck, Daniel can squeeze on some of the rooks in the beautiful sunshine last evening with their glossy plumage. And that's one of the other differences. Both jackdaws and carrion crows have dull black plumage. And a yellowhammer has just arrived together with a jackdaw on the bale in front of you. It's a male yellowhammer, first year, so it's not completely lemon yellow on its breast. Absolutely stunning. And we'll sit here a few minutes longer and hopefully you'll get a bird's eye view of a rook.
I've been sitting here for a couple of minutes, and now we have, Chris.
You've got your first carrion crow. We've had jackdaws, and so this is the largest member locally of the corvid family. It's about 19 inches from tip of beak to tip of tail, and really interesting. So mainly eating roadkills, very, very sharp indeed. And you can see the plumage is quite dull. It's only feeding on some grain about 4 feet from us, but it's lacking that really long beak with the white base around the beak as well, which rooks have. So
Rook's plumage is more glossy.
yes, it's almost in the sunshine. It's almost mirror-like. So it's coming across onto the table now. There you are. You'll never, ever be closer to a carrion crow than what they're seeing now. And they change colour, plumage from in the northern part of the UK. The squirrel just spooked the crow and it just flew off. And in the northern half of the UK, they're called hoodies because part of the plumage is white or creamy white. So there we are. Now, they get blamed for a lot of mischief to farmers' crops. In fact, the whole name scarecrow is completely wrong. It should be scare rook because they're the ones that do the damage to crops, rooks and jackdaws, whereas carrion crows are much more meat eaters. So there we are, yet another countryside myth blown apart. They should be scare rooks.
And the crows, there just aren't the numbers, are they? Because they are heavily territorial.
Yes, and there's 3 or 4 rooks flying up towards us now, and even as they're flying up the hedgerow towards us, we might get another visit for some rooks. You can actually see that white base round the bill, and the bill is fearsomely long. It's about 75 mil, about 3 inches long for probing down into the soil, but beautifully attractive birds, and of course very, very communal when they nest together, roost together, and quite often, much to the consternation of farmers, they feed together as well. So the old motto is true to some extent in that one rook is a crow and lots of crows are rooks.
Well, hopefully we'll get some more rooks landing in front of our window in just a moment. Just to say, though, this is spectacular as a setting for a bird hide. We can see over several of Chris's fields down into a valley, and then the other side, the city of Norwich, and with the black sky full of rain over on the northern horizon, poking up from Norwich is this amazing white spike.
I could just see it.
And it's the cathedral.
I thought that was somebody's stiletto.
Norwich Cathedral spire, and it's shining white in the sunshine, and that is beautiful Cairn stone from 800 years ago, isn't it?
Absolutely. The second tallest cathedral in the UK. I think Salisbury takes the ticket, but Norwich is just a few feet shorter. There we are.
And in these conditions, it looks absolutely amazing.
Yeah, incredible. And built right by the River Wensum there.
That could be a Saturn V NASA rocket sticking out there.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a good 200. It's not 300 feet tall, but it's over 200 feet. How they did it, I do not know. And how it's still standing. It's built on marshy soil right by the river. With the weight is colossal. And I think in the footings, when they were dug out, they used faggots, which is brooches of hazel all tied up into bundles, and then laid some sort of mortar on top of that, and that's what supported the whole building. How that's worked, I do not know.
And we've got an arrival, Chris. It looks like a rook to me.
Yes, yep, look at that. Fantastic. Yes, it's a male rook, quite large, and you can see the big white patch around the base of the bill there. And so what he's doing, he's eating the seed on the top of the bale as quickly as he possibly can, but not digesting it. It's all being stored in the base of his bill, and it's just beginning to swell up as though he's swallowed a very large gobstopper, which I used to at school, except the bulge will stick out of the side of my cheek, and in this case it's underneath. So I hope my video from last night, yesterday evening, will show these very large sort of bulbous growths on the base of the bill, and it will then fly down to the lake once it's fully charged up with perhaps 100 grains, fly down to the lake, mix that with water, and then deliver that to where the female and the young rooks are on the nest. Obviously, he can't feed them dry grain, which is what he's gathering here. An amazing sight.
And he's looked like quite a sort of a dominant rook. He's the beak looks large, maybe larger than some of the other birds.
Yes, and there's one just coming beside us now. And for just a few seconds, I thought it was a carrion crow because there was no white skin visible. And this particular rook had been probing into my fields and covered the base of the bill with pure high ash clay. And so it's easy to get confused. So there we are.
Well, it's been wonderful sitting here, and we've been just a few feet away from a carrion crow and those rooks as well, and plenty of other birds, including the
jackdaws and the yellowhammer.
Yellowhammer. So we've seen a lot here.
Yes, and we've still got a squirrel sitting 4 inches from the window.
He has been getting in the way a little bit. Clear off.
He has.
Clear
yes.
off. And an update on the cathedral spire now. It's raining in Norwich, and it's gone a dark colour of black.
Yes.
So from brilliant white to black.
Almost invisible. And that's how the skyscape changes in an instant, as do the seasons. So there we are. Enjoy late spring, early summer. If you're out and about in the countryside, it's a wonderful time of the year, and we're sitting in a wonderful spot, just enjoying it for a short while.
Lovely smell of mouse as well.
And rat.
Oh, I thought it was my aftershave.
I use a new one called Tester. It's much cheaper.
Well, we'll see you next week, won't we?
Yes, we will.
Who knows what the weather will be? It may be 90 degrees in the shade.
I had planned to do butterflies this morning and had to make a quick change. We've got holly blue out on the wing and a new one for High Ash Farm, which I've not shared with you before, green hair streak. So, right, we'll streak off back to the farm now and hope the weather is more clement this time next week.